All right, so far you have multiplied rational numbers in fraction form, you have divided rational numbers in fraction form, and now we're going to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Remember, if you have a common denominator, you can go ahead, simply add the numerators and keep the same denominator. When you're dealing with a fraction or a rational number, you're cutting it into certain parts. You have a whole and then part left over. So you need to only add the common parts. You need to have common denominators in order to do this. And there's two ways that you can actually do this. You can first find the common denominator by multiplying one denominator by the other denominator. That's a quick and easy way to do it. Or the second method, you can find the least common denominator and we'll take it from there. And I'll show you both methods and you can choose whichever one that you feel more comfortable with. So first we have the fractions 4/7 plus 1/3. If I use method 1, then technically all I'm doing is I'm multiplying 7 times 3 to get 21. And then I simply have to take and multiply on the diagonals. 7 times 1 is 7, and 3 times 4 is 12. So now I'm adding the 12 and the 7. 12 plus 7 is 19, and it's 19 over 21. In this particular case, 7 and 3, their least common denominator is also 21 anyway, so it doesn't really matter which method you choose, method 1 or method 2, because they have the same end result. Now, if you were able to, you would have to simplify the fraction like we learned how to do previously. So let's try some subtraction. 1/2 minus 7/8. So again, I'm going to go ahead and do method 1, and then I'll see if method 2 is different. So 8 times 2 is 16. And if I go 1 times 8, that gives me 8. 7 times 2 gives me 14. So what I can do now is I keep it as sixteenths. 8 subtract 14. Let's do a little review. When we subtract integers, it's technically the same as adding the opposite. So if I think of this as 8 plus a negative 14, so my answer is going to be negative, and I have 6 more negatives than I do positives. If I think of this again as 8 plus a negative 14, because technically the definition of subtraction is adding the negative. You add the opposite. So 6 and 16 are both divisible by 2. So I do have to simplify. This gives me a negative 3/8. Now let's see if I would have done the same problem using the least common denominator. Let me erase this. The least common denominator is the least common multiple, and both 2 and 8 divide into 8. You always want to start with the largest one and see if the smallest one will divide in. So my common denominator here is actually 8. And 2 divides into 8 4 times, so I multiply the numerator by 4. And then this stays as 7/8. And again, when I subtract, I'm going to add the opposite. So 4 plus a negative 7, I have 3 more negatives, so it's negative 3/8. So see, you get the same exact answer. In this first method, I had to simplify. In the second method, I did not. Let's try a mixed number. Now there's two different things that you can do with the mixed number. You can either change it so that everything is in fraction form and it's improper, or if we have subtraction, in some cases we're going to have to end up borrowing. So I will show you both methods, and again you can choose whichever method that you're more comfortable with. So here I have 3.5 and negative 7 and 4/5. So I will go ahead and not change it to improper first. I'm going to use method 1. I only look at the fraction part. So 5 times 2 is 10. And I like to stack them this way vertically. And 5 times 2 is 10. And then 1 times 5 is 5. 4 times 2 is 8. So I end up with 3 and 5/10 plus a negative 7 and 8/10. I'm going to stack it so that my larger absolute value number, ignoring the signs is what I'm saying, I'm going to put that on top. So I have, and I'm going to keep it negative, negative 7 and 8/10. And then I have plus a 3 and 5/10. Oops. 3 and 5/10. My pen is going crazy. So I look at this and, excuse me, technically I'm going to go ahead and do subtraction because I have more negatives up here. My final answer will be negative. I don't make the fraction part and the integer part negative. I just bring down the negative. And here, this is going to be 4. 7 and 3 differ by 4. And 8 and 5 differ by 3. So I end up with negative 4 and 3/10. Now, again, if I did method 2, 2 and 5, their least common denominator is 10. Now, I'm going to go ahead, because I don't have room on here, and I'm going to erase what I have and do the other method I spoke about and make both of these improper. When you make a fraction improper, we've done this before. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7, so I have 7/2 plus a negative. I ignore the negative sign and only look at the 7 and 4/5. So again, you ignore the 7 or the negative sign when you're making it improper. 5 times 7 is 35 plus 4 is 39/5. Again, my common denominator is 10. 7 times 5 is 35. And negative 39 times 2 is negative 78. So I look at this, adding a negative, so I have more negatives, and 78 and 35 differ by 43. So there's a negative 43/10. And now we change this back to a mixed number. Keep it negative. 10 divides into 43 4 times. And you end up with a remainder of 3, so it's 3/10. So again, you get the same answer. I prefer changing everything to improper just because it goes right along with our multiplication and our division problems, but again, the choice is yours. So here we have 3 and 7/12 plus a negative 2 and 4/5. I'm going to change them to improper because I said that is my favorite method, and if you'd like to see it done without changing it to improper, come see me and I will show you how in class. I'll give you a little private demo. So 12 times 3 is 36. 36 plus 7 is 43/12 plus a negative, and remember to change it. We only look at the positive. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14/5. Common denominator here, again, I can multiply 12 times 5, and that's going to give me a 60. And actually, the least common denominator of 12 and 5 happens to be 60 anyways, so I'll go ahead and use that. So 60 negative 43 times 5 is 215, and I have 12 times negative 14 is negative 168. 215 is larger than 168, and 168 is negative, so I'm just going to take 215 and subtract the 168, and I get a 47. So my answer is 47/60. This is simplified and it's proper, so I don't have to try to change it into anything. All right, let's go ahead and move on. In some cases, you're going to have to evaluate expressions, and we've done this before. This is simply where you substitute the number in for the variable. So we have 4 3/8 plus negative 3 2/9. And again, I'm going to go ahead and change these to improper. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 3 is 35/8, plus a negative, but again, we only look at the positive when we're changing. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 2 is 29/9. Common denominator is 72. $35 times 9 is $315. And negative 29 times 8 is negative 232. Our positive numerator is larger than our negative numerator. Oh, look what I did here. I cannot use this as a double negative, so I need to cross one of these off. So be very careful. So I'll take 315 and I can add a negative 232, and that gives me positive 83. So I have 83 72nds. This is improper, so I need to change it back to a mixed number. 72 goes into 83 once with a remainder of 11, so 11 72nds. Now n is negative 4/5, so I have n, whoops, I'm sorry, I know what n is. I have negative 4/5 subtract 3/8. And again, they keep giving us examples where the common denominator is what you get when you multiply these, so we're just keep on using method 2, I guess. I mean, method 1 and method 2 are the same, so this is 40. Four times 8, this is negative 32. Subtract 3 times 5 is 15. So I have a negative 32. And remember, we can think of this as plus a negative. Negative 32 plus negative 15. I'm combining everything is negative here. So negative 32 and negative 15, I end up with a negative 47/40 because everything is negative. I'm adding two negatives. So I'll take 40 into 47. I know it's negative and it goes in there one time. I have a remainder of 7. Oops. Remainder of 7. So it's negative 1 and 7/40. Let's try one more. 3/7 plus 1/2. Common denominator is 14. The pen is going crazy. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 7 is 7. 7 plus 6, or 6 plus 7, is 13. 14ths, it is simplified and it is in proper form. Let's try one more. Gavin needs 2 5/8 yards of fabric each to make 2 shirts. So he wants to make 2 shirts and each shirt is 2 5/8 of a yard. This amount is cut from a bolt containing 9 1/4 yards of fabric. How much fabric remains on the bolt? So there's a couple things going on. He needs to make 2 shirts. Each shirt is 2 5/8, and he only has a bolt with 9 1/4. So I'm going to take the total 9 1/4, and I'm going to subtract 2 5/8 for one shirt and subtract another 2 5/8 for the other shirt. Now you may be able to think of a shortcut on how we can subtract 2 5/8 twice without actually doing a double subtraction. So think about that and bring in your suggestion tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and change these to improper. 4 times 9 is 36, plus 1 is 37/4. Subtract 2 times 8 is 16, plus 5 is 21/8. Subtract another 21/8. Now, I can't just go ahead and do all my crossing off here like I've been doing because I have more than just 2 fractions here. My common denominator is an 8 because both 4 and 8 divide into 8. So I will change this to an 8, and I do need to, 4 times 2 is 8, so 37 times 2 is 74. And then I can just keep these as 21 eighths minus 21 eighths. I can do straight subtraction. So I have 74, subtract 21 again is 32 eighths. And when I divide, 8 divides into 32 exactly 4 times, so he has 4 yards left over. Okay, so those are your notes, and you will have tomorrow to work on the worksheet.